Hello and welcome. Many times on this channel, you've heard me say that Switch emulation was practically dead, that we didn't have any exciting news to share, that the scene was stagnant, with no major progress or performance improvements to talk about. But this time, I want to do the exact opposite, show you how the scene has been heating up surprisingly fast, and how it's genuinely making me excited about where things are heading. In this video, we'll go over the main changes the emulators have gone through this year, and debate the features of their latest versions. Let's start with Citron, which began the year as one of the most promising emulators, the one many hoped would finally become the true successor to Yuzu. Right from the start, Citron brought compatibility with several games that previously wouldn't run properly, such as Princess Peach Showtime and Sonic Generations, among others. It also inherited code from Yuzu, which had already made great progress in Switch emulation for Android, making Yuzu practically obsolete on that platform. Citron fixed several games, especially those built on Unreal Engine, like Ace Combat 7. Other titles that were still problematic but popular among players, especially on Android, where there are no official ports, also started working, such as Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, Dragon Ball Kakarot, and even the Mortal Kombat games, which now run on both Windows and Android, though, unfortunately, they still aren't fully fixed yet. However, just as these good news came unexpectedly, the project also faced sabotage, as many of you already know, and all that drama ended up halting its development for about 6 months. Some of you may still not fully trust the project, but I can tell that things have changed. The entire wave of Discord bans was lifted, and overall, people are no longer complaining about how the community is being managed. The developer keeps sending me updates about the progress, sometimes even test builds, and has been very open to my feedback, even when I point out regressions. The Citron we have today seemed to be focused only on the compatibility list, but I had already seen, in a few test builds, games like Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom running on the latest firmware, something the community had been eagerly waiting for. Until then, I hadn't paid much attention, but the team surprised everyone again by delivering full compatibility with this new firmware. There are still a few minor audio issues, but it's important to highlight that Citron was the first emulator to implement this feature, and some titles are already showing small performance boosts in the latest updates. We now have a solid version, with a compatibility list slightly below Eden's, even when comparing versions 0.9 and 0.10 only. Still, most games are already playable on Citron. The Android version is a bit behind Eden, but the developer has shown real dedication to improving the project overall, and considering his previous experience with Yuzu, it's very likely we'll see interesting updates soon. Speaking quickly about the previous versions, 0.8 and 0.9 brought compatibility with the latest game updates and firmwares. That means we can now play titles with additional language options, as well as benefit from small performance gains. This new implementation also paved the way for many games with audio issues to be fixed, such as Zelda, Echoes of Wisdom, and other JRPGs that still had glitches. However, full audio correction hasn't been implemented in Citron yet. It's currently available only in Eden. It was also around these versions that PGO was introduced, bringing performance improvements. In the newest version, 0.10, compatibility with CKGP Deluxe was added, which, if you don't know, is a Mario Kart 8 mod that adds many new cups, songs, and tracks, practically transforming the game into a whole new experience, even with working online mode. The mod is free to download from the official website, and as you can see in the gameplay footage, everything runs perfectly. I played through 2 full cups to test, and there were no issues. Additionally, the developer mentioned that there were major improvements in the Android version, including a new control overlay and better compatibility. Speaking of compatibility, I can confirm that Citron hasn't yet received the same JRPG fixes that Eden has, but progress is steady. And an important note, I recently mentioned that both projects were in a rough spot, with accusations of improper code usage, but it now seems that has finally been resolved. Developer Zephyron wrote, "We continue our commitment to transparent development and proper attribution. This release includes contributions adapted from the Eden emulator project, properly credited above. We believe the entire emulation ecosystem thrives when teams collaborate and acknowledge each other's work." And that's exactly what I said on Discord last week. When both projects help each other, the growth is much greater, and community support soon follows. Before moving on to Eden, if you enjoy this kind of content and want to keep up with the latest updates from other emulators, don't forget to leave your like. And if this is your first time here, consider subscribing to the channel to catch the next videos. If you want to buy original games while saving a lot, check out Instant Gaming, the digital store that sells games for various platforms, such as PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch. Get games of all genres with discounts of up to 95%. You'll also find a variety of gift cards and credits for other services. You can pay for your order through your credit card on a website with a 4.7 rating on Trustpilot. You're buying games directly from Instant Gaming, not from other retailers. If you encounter any issues, Instant Gaming offers 24/7 support. And this month, Instant Gaming is offering a special discount on Wuchang, with a price at least $10 cheaper than on Steam, making it the lowest price ever for the game. What are you waiting for to save? Links in the description. Just like Citron, Eden also brought many new features to the community and didn't disappoint in 2025. Even though the first releases of its PC version were a bit underwhelming, the Android builds of Eden, along with new features, were evolving rapidly with every update. From the early versions, it was already clear that Unreal Engine games were performing much better, allowing the Android community to play titles like never before. Not every game has been fully fixed yet, which is understandable, since handling Unreal Engine on the Switch is extremely complex. But the progress has been remarkable. The real breakthrough for Eden, and what truly solidified its name in the scene, came with version 0.0.3. In that update, more than 50 previously problematic games were fixed across both Windows and Android versions. Eden also stood out on Linux, and quickly introduced builds for the Steam Deck, which, although already available on Citron, still had many issues there. The project even attempted to reach iOS, but there's still no clear information on whether that version remains active today. Alongside this new compatibility list came several unique features that helped extract more FPS and fix old bugs inherited from Yuzu, such as control issues during multiplayer, as well as other major improvements that made the overall experience far smoother. Jumping to more recent developments, just like Citron implemented compatibility with the new firmware, Eden also received that support. In addition, it introduced fixes for several JRPGs that had audio issues, further expanding its list of compatible games. Another impressive milestone was improving compatibility with Snapdragon Elite devices. While these chips could already run the emulator before, performance used to be terrible. Now, it has improved considerably. It's not perfect yet, considering how powerful those devices are, but there's finally light at the end of the tunnel. Lastly, the latest nightly builds of Eden can now also run CTGP-DX, thanks to developer Pikachu, who implemented support for the mod. The game runs at 100% speed, without any graphical or performance problems, at least during the weeks I tested it. Speaking of nightly builds, at this point, just like with Yuzu, I no longer recommend waiting for official releases. The best option is to download the nightly versions, which are usually about 2 weeks ahead of version 0.0.4, bringing faster improvements. However, be cautious. Since these are development versions, you might end up with an unstable build if you don't know which one to pick. In the latest nightly build, which will likely become RC2, the developers fixed the Pokemon ZA issues, where severe vertex explosions caused massive performance drops and made the game completely unplayable. And that wraps up all the fixes and updates from a remarkable year for Switch emulation, with these two giants, Eden and Citron, standing strong. There were also significant gains in Ryubing, but unfortunately it's hard to comment on those since the project is more closed off and doesn't publicly detail its changes. Still, we do know progress has been made, even if not everything is shared openly. I'd like to congratulate both the Eden and Citron teams for bringing such major advancements to the Nintendo Switch emulation community, especially in this last semester, and for fixing long-standing issues like audio problems with the new firmware and compatibility with mods such as CTGP-DX, which many developers had tried to make work without success. I can't wait to see what new features and improvements the next year will bring to Nintendo Switch emulation. Even as the console approaches the end of its life cycle, there's still a lot of exciting stuff ahead. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.